uncensored. Welcome to Hauntoverse Uncut. Good evening, Scare Warriors, and welcome to Hauntoverse Uncut. Oh, this guy.
I'm not gonna be able to contain my excitement. Go ahead. I'll let you go ahead.
So
I need to jump in here.
Yeah, if you haven't guessed our topic here this evening, is the announcement, the long-awaited announcement that Dead Exposure is coming back to Halloween Horror Nights. Now, Brian, it was funny, but that morning that we knew we were getting an announcement last week, that morning you called it. You said,
I did.
Be it. They're going to follow up Stranger Things, this huge announcement, with an even bigger announcement that the HHN fanboys are going to go crazy over, and that is the return of Dead Exposure. So, Brian, this is something you've been waiting for a very long time.
I mean, you could maybe say 10 years to the year, you know, if you were to be technical here. But, you know, we didn't talk too long ago, Andy, when we did our first show. It wasn't that long ago. And in all of the life events, I mean, Kane winning preliminary in Knoxville, Rob Dole coming around to Rocky Mountain Construction, maybe ranking Steel Vengeance as number one. What? Danny leaving group chats. The Preds are winning right now. And No Limits 2 finally came to Mac. But nothing can compare to Dead Exposure 2. The announcement that if you had been in the car, I was in the vehicle with two other friends of ours. You may know them, Devin Olson, Ryan Houts. We were together.
I've heard of them.
You might know them. And Ryan Houts, after a long day, I hadn't checked online or anything. I know that they had teased something the night before. I hadn't even seen that. And Ryan was like, "Did you see what Halloween Horror Nights announced?" And I said, "No, but I have a guess." And I told him what I told you. And this was just completely, I don't know why. I was looking over ideas and houses, you know, what could they do? You know, they did, because the big thing we knew was they were announcing an original house. And that was, I think, the Dead giveaway. I would have to say them announcing an original house in April, May is ridiculous because general public doesn't care about that. And as soon as they said that they were doing that, I was like, it's got to be. And I looked it up 10 years to the year, and I was like, oh. And so I said, you know what? Stranger Things won over the entire general public. Now they're going to win over the fans with Dead Exposure 2. And it was like a pipe dream. I'd said this jokingly. And I think I screamed for a solid 3 minutes when Ryan Houts pulled up on his phone, Dead Exposure 2. I texted you guys. I was yelling at Devin and Ryan. I called my wife to be like, I'm going to Halloween Horror Nights this year. Because, and I don't know if it was you, someone asked me recently. They were like, what is the one house they could announce that you would say, I'm buying my ticket today? And I said, you know, over the last 9 years of me going to this event, I missed 1 year. I said, there's not one anymore. They've done them all. There's houses that would really pull me to go, like an It house I would be on board for. There were some things last year. I'm like, oh, okay. But there's not really that house anymore because I gave up on a Dead Exposure sequel 5 years ago. You know, when we didn't get it for the 20th anniversary or the 25th anniversary, I thought, okay, because the concept, if you don't know, is an amazingly simple but horrifying concept for a haunted house. And with all the problems nowadays, you know, they've toned back alcohol because characters are getting hurt, and it's a dangerous situation. They've done a house similar to it in recent years called House of Horrors. I worked that house. It was the house I got hit the most in because of the nature of the setup, but also some of the best scares. We'll get to that. And as soon as I looked it up and I saw it was the 10th year, I thought maybe. But why? Why not wait till the year 30? You know, what? Yeah. Maybe they have bigger plans. I don't know. Why is this year huge? 2 houses And they couldn't, I mean, argue, in my opinion, there's not two bigger announcements they could have going into this year right now, because Stranger Things is one of the hottest topics still in terms of the general public haunt world and scary and horror movie world.
Yeah.
Aside from it, maybe I don't know what other high power series you could get into, you know, American Horror Story is up there, I think, but they've run that course. And now you throw in Dead Exposure 2, which my only reservation, it's the highest rated Halloween Horror Nights house of all time. And everybody who's been going from year 1, year 5, year 10, anybody who got to do that house said anybody who didn't, you missed out, because it was truly spectacular. And that leads us to right now, will that damage? You know, am I already setting myself up for failure? Wondering if this is going to be the craziest house I've ever been through, or is it going to deliver because the concept is such a strong concept? And why now? So many questions.
Well, let's go into the concept that if you visit Hauntoverse, you can find all the previous houses from Orlando. And Dead Exposure, if just to read you the copy here, it says, Charlie McPherson, a noted tabloid photographer, has always wanted something more in life than photographing celebrities at their worst. One night, Charlie gets his wish when the city he resides in becomes overrun with flesh-eating zombies. Trapped in his downtown loft with bloodthirsty zombies just outside, Charlie captures the last horror-filled moments of his life on film, and you are with him every step of the way. So they are expanding on this concept, this zombie-filled world that is being done by a photographer, and they are doing Patient Zero. So they're actually telling the backstory of how this zombie apocalypse came to pass, it seems. And it seems like the simple concept here for this house is it's a blackout house with strobes that illuminate certain scenes as you walk through the attraction. So I don't know. Like to me, it sounds like a really cool idea, but I almost feel like this is a play on what other people have been doing. Last year, at Knott's, we had the flashlight house. That they control the flashlights. It's strobed at certain points. You got to point your own light on the scene. This is being done for you now, where the strobes are illuminating certain things at certain times. Still somewhat of a blackout house. But people at Horror Nights have railed on Walking Dead for so long. Are they going to fight against this new zombie house, or do you think that just having this name,
it's an interesting, and that's a point I'm glad you bring up, because I hate zombies, and I've never been shy about that. I don't care about zombies; they don't scare me. I'm overdone with it. There's a few good out there, but overall, I don't really care for the whole zombie thing. And Walking Dead did leave a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths after year after year after year after year of zombies. And I do think, I think some people, I went to every fan site. I went to main pages and deep pages to see what's the buzz about this. How do people feel about it? And it was honestly, I think it's just been so long. Some of the bigger fans, the community is just less than it was, because there wasn't in the comment section everybody losing their mind. But anybody who did comment on it said, oh my God, I can't wait. This has been my favorite house. The zombie was a little bit of a turnoff for me, but again, I think with this concept, it doesn't matter, because you're only going to see it for a few seconds, and it does go back to the blackout haunt. Those are very popular right now. 2008 is when Halloween Horror Nights did this. Is it like, let's look at Saw 1 to Saw 8 or whatever we're on. Saw 1 was shocking and crazy and amazing. Same with The Ring. Same with Blair Witch Project. The first version of these things were scary. 10 years later, you have a whole genre dedicated to that type of movie or story, and people are jaded to it. Will they be jaded to Dead Exposure 2? Here's where I think it's different, and this is where I argue, yes, it's a blackout. Yes, it's a cheap thing. It's cheap, but it's Halloween Horror Night sets at the end of the day, and something that they do well, and as someone who worked in House of Horrors, and has worked and been through other local haunts, when you have blackout haunts with, you point your flashlight, there's one giant key factor missing that Halloween Horror Nights pays the most attention to, and that's the choreography of the scene and the choreography of the scare. And I remember when I was Frankenstein, learning the timing of the strobe light synchronization with my scare was it took me 3 sets, and I was getting frustrated. And I think that's where you'll see Dead Exposure excel. It's not just, oh, it's pitch black, strobe light. It's here's an intentional strobe to set the scene. Here's an intentional strobe to show the movement. And then here's a specific amount of blackout time so that when the next 3 strobes come in, it's executed perfectly. And that's what you saw in the 2008 version. I think that's why it's so scary, because they're telling you exactly what you're going to see, when you're going to see it, and how you're going to see it. And I think that will execute very well, as it did in House of Horrors. Now, the problem is a lot of people hate House of Horrors because it was cheap. It was not Halloween Horror Nights quality sets, right? It was thrown together. It was wood panels painted. But I will say, despite everything they had to go through to get that house up and running, and yeah, it wasn't up to par, I still got the best scares of my entire event. And now I worked in Gothic, I worked on Bungees, I worked on a lot of high production scenes, if you will. And I loved House of Horrors because it's cheap, it's the easiest scare. But the shock and the look on people's face when you're staring at them 12 feet away and it's blink, blink, and then you just full on sprint and are right in front of them as soon as the other one's hit, it's a scare you can't get anywhere else and any way else. And I think that will trump the ridiculous storyline of photographer zombies. And yeah, it's a blackout. Yeah, it's a strobe. But it depending on how they set the choreography for these scenes, I think it will still be utterly terrifying, because you're only going to be told what they want you to see. And if you can get that Frankenstein scare it was a 7 to 10 second long. First light, second light, I got to get to this position. By that light, I've got to move in between the black at that point. And that was the problem. When I missed, there was nothing. It didn't do anything. And I think that's a weakness of this concept. If you're in Halloween Horror Nights, you're in a high production value house, there's lights or scares. Even if you don't hit the scare, you have a good time. This house, if you're going to miss it, you're not going to see anything. And I think that will be a weakness to the concept. But I think there's a reason they've been sitting on it. It's a good one, and I have incredibly high expectations for it. And if you watch, don't watch the walkthroughs. It's so hard to see. Cameras don't pick it up well. There's one good walkthrough that does slow motion, and even then, there's a glimpse of the terror, because it's just boom, there he is. Boom, there he is. He's gone, and then boom. I'm so ecstatic, and I now have a deadline because I learned. The 2-for-1 deal, buy one night, get the second night free, expires in June. So you have to buy your ticket before June.
Yeah, I'm going to have to do that pretty soon, because it's seeming more and more likely that this is an event that's going to be pretty big. For whatever reason, I don't know. Like you said, I don't understand why this one is going to be big, why they're going to pour all the money into this one. Because there are a few other rumors circulating out there.
There are. Let's dive in.
That this might be a totally 80s themed event, which I find really strange, Brian, because Brian, I don't know if you recall, but my haunted house that I did this was called Revenge of the 80s.
This is not the first coincidence with your house and Halloween Horror Nights.
Like, this is kind of ridiculous now. Like, literally, if they do an 80s themed event, I will have done one a year previous, completely 80 themes of and the only reason I did an 80 themes event was because I was listening to 80s music, and I'm like, my God, how awful is this music? Like I was listening to the I forget, just this crazy stuff, and I'm like, this is terrifying just listening to it. And I said, let's do a house on it.
Let's do a house on it. And as terrible as it is, to be fair, you get into some like synth wave type of music. It's very atmospheric, and that's what the Stranger Things soundtrack is. Just that. It's that 80s synth atmosphere, cheap, whatever. But we'll go. If you think of the song, throw it out, because let's go into this 80s theme, because. So we have Dead Exposure 2 happening in Paris or somewhere, France, in the 80s, and we looked it up, me and Ryan, and there's not really any major event tied to it. It just seems to be happening in that era.
Yeah.
And then obviously Stranger Things is like the 80s like tribute show right now.
Yeah.
And so here's some ideas. People have been throwing rumors all around because they think it's going to be 80s themed. I'm torn. I'm not. I need one more solid idea to come out, because I still think they're going to get it. Okay, yeah, the original 80s, fine, I see that. Icons 10 years ago, dead exposure to Bloody Mary. I know some sites have said, will we see Bloody Mary again? That got me digging. How long has the Bloody Mary game been around in the folklore and the all the creepy myths, if you will? And while the story is based on a much older event, 1975, 76, 78 is when the game started gaining the bathroom, the lights game. The game makes it sound weird, but that led into the 80s. So I'm like, okay. And there was another article, someone, I forget what site, published all the 80s that has ties to Eddie, the icon that we never really got to see because of the unfortunate timing of events and his backstory. Will we see an icon for the first time in a while? And does it tie into him? Because he does have some 80s tie there. And from there, where do we go? Then what are we getting if it's 80s themed? Is it going to be like Dead Exposure where they're just, this happened around we can make it happen around the 80s? And is that too much? Is it going to be weird? And people on forums are talking about, if they're doing 80s, dive all in, make it juxtaposition, do some contrast, do happy neon 80s, like old like deep romantic comedies of the 80s where it's just like that super cheesy kind of glare, kind of neon and flashy to really like make it uncomfortable with the horror setting going on. You could totally do that type of contrast. But what do you do?
Well, and there's a whole bunch of stuff. If you want to go to our original houses, it would seem a perfect fit would be to do another run. That you did.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Run was very popular. We could see this would be the third one.
This would probably be the third one. The last one was done at 24, I think.
Yep.
That was my first time at the event, and I really enjoyed that house. I actually liked the whole standing in line, the pre-show.
Yeah, the pre-show was cool.
With the whole TV screen on the wall, that was cool. Just IP properties. You mentioned it. I also mentioned. They've never done. Have they ever done Gremlins? I don't think they have.
I don't know if they have. I don't know. Comment if you know. Gremlins would be phenomenal, and you could even make that the Ash versus Evil Dead house, the comedy house that they used to do. I loved Ash versus Evil Dead last year. I got the shirt. It was fun. I was just laughing. It was scary, but it was fun, and that's something the event has been lacking, in my opinion, because I loved the comedy houses from years ago. Well, that would make an amazing house.
I raved about This Is the End years ago from Hollywood. Mm-hmm. I thought that was a great house.
Absolutely.
It was a fun time. Ash versus Evil Dead, they did just cancel that show. So
they did.
I would not expect a house.
But at this point, I assume they'd know before us, obviously, but that was canceled pretty recently, and we know Horror Nights usually has everything submitted by last month. So, again, I don't think we'd see it a return. No one was really writing home about that house. I was hoping to see it, come back in the next few years, because we've had Ash versus Evil Dead, before, and now we have Ash, just Evil Dead, and now Ash versus Evil Dead. Cabin in the Woods, kind of similar. I think it's a fun house. But here's new Halloween coming out, right? There's another idea. I don't know if it's going to be what era it's based in. The first reviews were kind of a little rough on it, but the first one came out, I believe, right at the maybe late 70s, early 80s. I think it was 78, 90, 79. But again, could we see just a tribute to Halloween? Are we going to see, just because they've done Halloween 1, they've done Halloween 2, do they just do a Halloween house that covers all of them, including the new one? Because that leads in, okay, go ahead.
I was saying that you could absolutely do that. And you have all those other classic horror icons. That's one of the reasons why we did it at the school, was that you could do Freddy, you could do Jason.
Yeah, that's the era of them. It's true. It'd be a lot of easy IPs, and that would tie into the other rumor we're hearing. I boldly stated on the last show, 5-to-5 ratio, maybe 4-6 of IP to original. And a lot of people are maybe rumbling and thinking 90%, 9-10, 8-10 of, and that's why everyone said Dead Exposure is a huge announcement, because everything else is going to be intellectual property. I have two problems with that. Last year, the original houses were the best they've been in years, and everyone thought so, including my GP friends who don't follow the event. They loved Scarecrow. They loved Bloody Waters. I can never remember the name, the Blood on the Bayou one, and the Fallen one. I mean, everyone wrote home about those. And I just can't see them cutting down to 1 after such a strong year. And 2, every year they have problems. Some contract gets messed up. We had, the vampire, whatever, I don't remember the name of the house, the vampire house that was supposed to be Conjuring last year. And they finally settled that lawsuit. Are we going to see a Conjuring universe house finally with Conjuring 1, 2, and the Annabelles, and now the Nun? They have a lot of material there. Blumhouse could come back. I feel like there's some 80s references in a lot of their films. They have a huge pool to, pull from.
Yeah.
Weird double word. But yeah, so I don't know. I want one more announcement, and who knows when we're going to get it. Did we get 2 giant April ones, April, May, because they have this deal till June. I expect we'll get 1, maybe 2 more before that deal expires. But I think they know the people that are going to determine if they're coming back or not will make their decision. They have to make their decision. You and I, last year, I was lucky to wait as long as I did. I have to have my travel plans 3 to 5 months in advance, 3 to 6 months in advance with a family now and with all of us planning. So by June, I should know if I'm going to Halloween Horror Nights or not. And so here they are. They're like, okay, here's a 2-for-1 deal and just Stranger Things and Dead Exposure 2. And that's enough to sell me. So, they don't need to announce anything else. I think for the people who are in this position each spring, am I going to go? Am I not going to go? I think Universal's done an amazing job of, hey, I can make it worth it with 1 to 2 things right here. And for $75 for 2 nights, I mean,
that's a steal. It's an absolute steal compared to the pricing that we've had in the past, especially considering that you get to walk through the gate.
Yeah,
basically $35 a night, and still experience Universal.
And will you see that? I think we talked about that. Will you see that problem with people like, hey, I don't really care about Halloween Horror Nights, but I care about Harry Potter, and I know there's no line, and half the rides are open, and for $75. And after I just went down to Florida last week, and I went to City Walk and hung out, had a good time, but I looked at the prices because I haven't been to Universal since New Hulk, since Kong, since any of the new stuff. And the price is just really high. It's really, really high for a 1 day.
It's hard to justify.
It is. It really is. Now, for $75 for 7 hours, maybe.
Well, and what's funny is, I don't want to get into that, but, we've had a number of articles come out saying how Fast and the Furious is a clunker. Not that surprises me because I wrote it over at Hollywood, so that doesn't really shock me. But maybe this is Universal trying to get people through the door because maybe they're seeing a decline or maybe, like you said, with all these IPs, if they're really going to go that hardcore, they're going to need lines to justify all this stuff. Yeah. Because getting IPs is extra money. Doing is probably cheaper. I don't know if you can balance it with the sets. Because if you do Freddy versus Jason, you might reuse a whole bunch of stuff from other years.
There, that's true. And if they use any of those icons, they have all that. They have enough stuff to put back in and recycle. And I'm hoping this year we see a stronger Scare Zone game. If it's all 80s again, I don't know where we go with that. What we do, but maybe some 80s sci-fi. I would be down for that. You
bring back Predator and lo and behold, there's a new Predator movie coming out this year too. Predator's going to be back in the.
It's lining up the more we talk about it. The amount of reboots that are happening, we could see, and I wouldn't be angry. I really wouldn't. This is their 28th year. You got to change it up, right? You can't do the same thing. But my only reserve with that is they did all the Walking Dead one year, right? Every Scare Zone was Walking Dead, the whole overall thing, and that was not a favorite of mine or a lot of people's. So I think 80s is broad enough though that you could. But yeah, I'm excited to see what else we get. I had to talk about this because Dead Exposure 2. I mean, every year and every time I worked or went or whatever, and everyone's like, Dead Exposure. I'd written off that I'd ever get to see it. And now, my wife and I have an ongoing joke. I think I mentioned last time on the show that I'm not going to go this year. And then the whole year it's like, I'm not going. I'm going to go. And I didn't go 2 years ago, and I'm trying to do the every other year thing. And then Universal just comes out of the gate with some pretty incredible announcements. And again, in April, May, price. I have no argument with price. You know, I can't call it a money thing at this point. And so now it's just, and with dead exposure too, I can't really even be mad because I'd just kill to see that. So it's gonna be interesting.
It's gonna be interesting for sure. You're going in on your ticket. I'm probably going in on my ticket here in the next few weeks. I'm gonna buy mine before June.
We have to. That's the thing. I have to decide. So,
well, I think I'm going all in.
I think I'm gonna have to. Return. We'll both land, and we'll throw up some glorious, if we will, depending on what weekend. If hopefully we can match up. I think that your weekend is free. I'm not sure. I have to look at our schedule.
I've given up on trying to get a joint event with one Brian Bass. At this point, you know, it's kind of like it happens.
If it happens, it is. But again, that's just the nature of how my life works. But we've had 3 successful times now.
Yeah.
Or was it 2? I don't remember. I think it was 3.
Well,
Chicago, was 2.
Nashville, and not even at a park though. We've never.
No, we haven't done a park.
Gatekeeper.
It was 3. It was 3. Yes. All right. We have 3. That's 2 more than Dole can say, and I think 3 more than Danny can say.
Yeah. Well, so. Danny Miller was at Gatekeeper, but Danny Miller.
No, he wouldn't talk to me. Yeah. Oh no, it's cool. Below him. Yeah.
He's like, I was on, Lost Theme Parks or something. Some crazy shit.
Well, we'll be back sometime soon. Hopefully, we don't take a 4-month hiatus because of announcements like last time. I mean, I remember last year we did a show and we had nothing new to say after 3 months because they hadn't given us anything. Yeah. But we'll be watching really closely, and we hope you all will too. And yeah, I nothing else they can announce this year. It's all downhill because Dead Exposure 2 was the best thing they could have announced.
That's the pinnacle.
So that's the pinnacle. Yeah. I look forward to the challenge.
So as always, thanks for joining us here on Hauntoverse Uncut. I'm, of course, Andrew Barczyk from Chicago, Illinois.
Brian Bass from Nashville, Tennessee.
And as always, Scare On, Scare Warriors. Oh, this guy.
It's like Dead Exposure, but slower.
Yeah. But slower.